Hey, what's up guys, Rep here. So today we have a lot to discuss, all surrounding the topic of Stellar Blade, which officially released today. Now, ever since the hype behind this game was building, there was always an ongoing concern that there would be censorship in the official release of this game. And one of the big marketing points that has been pushed by this company is that Stellar Blade was going to offer the same uncensored version in all countries. This is something that people were very excited about, and it made journalists very mad who claimed that this uncensored release was going to be something diabolical and bad. However, we would see immediate censorship take place right as this game was making its official release. We saw journalists complaining about this right here, the combination of the hard graffiti next to the R Shop logo, and they claimed that this was offensive, a hard R reference, and of course, to the displeasure of many, this would be patched out. This would be censored by Stellar Blade as soon as it was discovered by these journalists. And say what you want, but that is an act of censorship. Now, moving forward, a lot of people were looking forward to the release, the official release today, to see if there's more changes, in particular, if there's going to be changes involving the outfits that the main protagonist, Eve, is wearing. Well, we have an article here by Niche Gamer that is definitely a very good guide as we go through this video, and also I'm going to add some things on that they have not gotten to yet. But they say this: Stellar Blade developer Shift Up acknowledges the outfit censorship. More players provide video evidence of these changes. So let's get into the article. It says, yesterday fans came forward surprised to see different versions of the Holiday Rabbit costume in Stellar Blade. As a result, accusations and misinformation overtook the discourse. The first signs of censorship in Stellar Blade appeared online when users who received physical editions of the game noticed that the Holiday Rabbit outfit was different after the game was patched. This was later thought to be a possible hoax after footage before the day one patch showed the censored outfit. So there is a ton of misinformation surrounding the subject, and a lot of people are very confused. Even people with good intentions are confused as to what's going on specifically with this Holiday Rabbit costume. Now, first thing that people saw was screenshots like this. They were going around on Twitter showing a claim that this was the uncensored pre-patch version of this outfit. You can see there's more cleavage here. And then on the patched version, you can see they add the little black shirt behind the initial outfit that obviously hides some of the cleavage. It is a censored version of this outfit. Now, some people are claiming that this is a hoax or fake or edited or something like that, because other people who have reviewer copies of this game said that this has been the case all along. This shirt underneath the initial outfit has always been a part of it. This user saying on the left is the bunny suit recorded on 4/14 on my Let's Play. On the right is the bunny suit recorded today on day one patch. So people were claiming that those other examples must be misinformation, and we see some other footage with this censored version dating back to April 24th, which is obviously before the official release. Now, what is going on? Well, it seems that Niche Gamer has the same thought process that I do about this, and here's their claim. What appears to be the case is that reviewers who received a digital copy of the game were actually playing a 1.01 patch as opposed to the game as it was shipped. This transitional patch between the original game and the day one 1.02 patch appears to have been what censored the outfits. The information about the uncensored outfits came from individuals who received their physical editions early and played the game unpatched, which at the time meant that it was difficult to verify. In the hours since Stellar Blade became available, more users have begun speaking up about the censorship and have been uploading videos of the uncensored outfits. So we're going to look at the examples in a second, but basically, in a nutshell, the version that people are claiming was the original one from days ago is actually a patched version. This reviewer copy that they're playing has already been patched with these censored outfits. The physical release that came out today is the original unpatched version containing these uncensored outfits. Yes, it looks like there is censorship, and there's videos showing proof of that. You can see users like this releasing their perspective with the physical copy. You can see right here, this is the original unpatched version of this outfit without the shirt underneath. If you go here, you can see they'll go into their interface and they will show everything going on. This right here is the outfit that was before the patch. The reviewer copy that people are using as proof that this never existed, they're playing a patched version of this game. The physical copy just hasn't been patched yet, and people who are getting the physical copy and then adding and installing this new patch are seeing this outfit get censored. This outfit has been censored. I think it's very clear that is the case right now. And of course, we have further evidence here coming from the related subreddit where we have the director of Stellar Blade acknowledge that people are upset about some censorship and changes that have taken place with the physical release versus other digital updates and patches. And this is something that makes it pretty clear what he's talking about.
약간 좀 그 검열 버전으로 다시 할 수 있는 방법을 생각하고 계신지 아니면 이런 이슈를 혹시 지금 알고 계신지는 한번 좀 물어보고 싶었습니다.
예, 당연하게도 이 이슈에 대해서 인지를 하고 있습니다. 다만 이제 저희가 최종적으로 여러분들께 보여드리고자 하는 것은 1.0002 버전의 의상이 맞습니다. 그래서 그게 최종 프로덕트라는 것을 확실히 말씀드리고 싶고요. 다만 이제 이것이 어쨌든 유저 여러분들을 완전히 납득시켜드릴 수 있는 답변은 아니기 때문에 지금 현재 그것에 대해서 내부에서 논의 중입니다. 그래서 조만간 한번 그 부분에 대해서 말씀드릴 수 있는 기회가 있을 거라고 생각합니다.
So based on the additional context provided by the director here, I think it's very obvious what happened. This was an outfit that was censored and altered in some sort of a way between the original physical copy and the patch version of this game. And that is something that people are upset about. And he is trying to convince people that, yes, it looks like censorship, but it's actually perhaps the final version we always wanted to go with, which I think is trying to cover their own tracks, because this is something you would expect out of a company that is dealing with Sony. Sony is very pro-censorship, and I'm not surprised that Stellar Blade would have difficulty trying to preserve some of these outfits. Now, moving forward, I want to address one more thing. A lot of people are spreading this screenshot. I believe this post has been taken down, but people are using this as another example of censorship, and it was causing more confusion. And it's titled here, Alternative Holiday Rabbit in NG+. You can see it is that same rabbit costume, it's just a different color, but it does have that little patch of clothing to hide some of the cleavage. Now, I think this is the result of something separate. I think, and this is just my personal opinion, I believe this is an alternative version of this rabbit costume that they are adding into this edition of the game. You can see in their initial post here, Stellar Blade New Game Plus mode, available on launch April 26th. And if you go down here, you'll see that there's an expanded wardrobe in this release, a whopping 34 new outfits for Eve to earn in New Game Plus. Now, is that 34 total or 34 in addition with New Game Plus? Not quite sure yet, but what I believe based on what I've seen, that previous screenshot is this updated patched version, and it is an alternative version of that existing costume. Now, moving forward, there would be more censorship. So here we have Niche Gamer saying, there have been also other changes, such as reducing the level of gore in the game and how it sticks to Eve's body. Both of these changes came despite assurances from Shift Up that the game would be uncensored for all regions. And you can see posts like this showing the proof that on the left, you have the pre-patched version where she is covered in blood whenever blood heads in her direction. And this is the patched version where the blood has been toned down and no longer sticks to her body when it lands there. Again, this is censorship, pure and simple. I mean, it's not like the most egregious, horrifying act of censorship, but it is censorship. And people normally would be very upset. And just because you like this game or Shift Up doesn't mean you should overlook this. So basically, what are we taking away from this? Well, we know a couple things. We know that there have been acts of censorship already committed by Stellar Blade. Whether it's the result of Sony pushing them or not, it doesn't change the fact that it is in fact happening. Now, a lot of people have had emotional responses to this, and I definitely caution against it. Some people are just immediately throwing their hands up in the air and saying this game is compromised and it's beyond saving. And some people are overlooking everything that's happening and saying, oh, well, whatever. I'm just going to play the game anyways. I don't really care if there's this censorship. It's not a big deal. And I think there's a lot to unpack here. A lot of these things can be true at the same time. Sony can be putting pressure on Shift Up to censor this game, while also Shift Up actively censoring the game And you can also want to play this game and see these changes fixed. Now, where are we? Again, Sony. We're dealing with Sony. Okay, Sony is one of the biggest offenders of random acts of censorship you will ever see. This is something that was already kind of acknowledged by the director of Shift Up and Yoko Taro, who is the creator of course, Nier Automata. So in an interview, they were going back and forth. They wanted to ask if there was any fights with Sony Interactive Entertainment since they are publishing Stellar Blade, where the director would say, he would glance around the staff members in the room and laughed, "The people at SIE are very, very nice." And then Yoko would say, "SIE's staff members are pulling faces I've never seen before. I wish the readers of this article could see it." There's definitely some sort of a tension and an acknowledgement between these creators that yes, there is some sort of a censorship issue when you're dealing with Sony. And that's not something that's surprising. We've seen how brutal they've been with their censorship, especially of Japanese products, where they have routinely tried to tone down anything they can in these games. In fact, the reason a lot of people are angry about this is because there seems to be a weird bias when it comes to certain games versus others. They're trying to censor and basically button up the designs of Eve and Stellar Blade, while they're also simultaneously selling games like Baldur's Gate 3 that has full-on nudity and an option for players to have sex with bears. Like, it's ridiculous that a little bit of cleavage in Stellar Blade is too much for that M for Mature game, but this M for Mature game can go way beyond that and not get touched. And of course, that hypocrisy has been reflected in the actions of journalists. We've been seeing this for a long time. People shaming and attacking these outfits of Eve from Stellar Blade, while these same authors are going forward and celebrating ways to find nude exploits in games like Baldur's Gate 3. And the hypocrisy can be seen in some of the reactions of content creators. You see this right here saying, "It's wild to me that despite good reviews, despite the game being genuinely fun to play, gooners can't just take the W and are having a meltdown over a small piece of black lace." Now, I think it's pretty disingenuous to dismiss all of this as the cries of gooners. This is a situation where players and customers are being lied to. This isn't about just a simple little piece of black lace. This is much bigger. So I don't understand why people will take this as a moral victory while accepting the fact that they bought a product from a company that lied to them. They lied about this promise of having uncensored versions released in all countries. And that is the main issue with Stellar Blade and Shift Up. You can acknowledge everything going on with Sony and the unfair treatment that Stellar Blade and Shift Up have received from many different sources, while also saying this is unacceptable. They shouldn't have made this promise if they couldn't deliver it. And I like Shift Up. I like Stellar Blade. But at the same rate, I'm not going to give them a pass just because I like them. This is acts of censorship. If this was happening to other games, people would be up in arms. So it's very odd to see some people just overlook these things because they want to support Stellar Blade. So on Sony's blog announcing the release of the NG Plus, there is one comment that I think really sums up how I feel and a lot of other people feel about what Shift Up and Sony is doing with this censorship. So this user says, "I really don't appreciate that it is now effectively false advertising and a lie that they explicitly advertise the game as an uncensored worldwide release, and yet we're getting conservative modesty edits to outfits that Sony let prominently featured in the trailers and promo material. And who knows where that will end, and yet Sony has no problem with bare effing, complete nudity, sex, and realistic and traumatic, disgusting violence in games like Cyberpunk, TLU, and Baldur's Gate 3. This is clown world nonsense, and you just lost a customer unless Sony reverses its lies and stops censoring the game pre and post launch. And apologies for lying. Heck, you can even call it a mistake. I don't even care about the bunny suit I probably wouldn't wear. It is the principle of the matter and the blatant double standard and the lack of trust. And that is my perspective on this situation. There is a lack of trust. When you advertise your game as something that won't be censored and then it's immediately censored, that is a problem. And you should be able to speak up and hold everyone in this scenario accountable. Now, what do? Well, I've seen a lot of different responses to this situation. People seeing the censorship and they immediately pull all of their support of Stellar Blade and Shift Up. And I've seen other people in their attempt to support Stellar Blade completely overlook these censorship changes that they normally would be very critical of if it was a different franchise or game. Now, I think there's a little more nuance to all this, where you can hold all parties accountable without playing favorites in a push to make this product and future products better without censorship. And that is something reflected by some claims made by Mark Kern, who's been a longtime member of this industry and someone who's been very vocal about the issues in the gaming industry. So he says this: I hate to be blunt, but if you cancel your pre-order, you hand the journalists and everyone making fun of Stellar Blade a huge win. They want it to fail. They want to write about how mad you are. Instead, we're going to have them write about how we changed it all the day Stellar Blade shipped. And that's reflected in posts like this. He's given many steps of what he thinks should happen. And here's step 7 saying, the petition I made to hashtag free Stellar Blade is up. Now, I know a lot of people will look at petitions and laugh. And yes, I don't think petitions alone will ever accomplish anything, but they are a useful tool and asset when you're trying to push for change. Because if you can get hundreds of thousands of signatures on a petition, that means something. That's showing what people want. We've seen these sorts of things be a valuable tool for pushing for what gamers want in the past. And that's something that he raises with Classic WoW. If you know everything surrounding Classic WoW, the original version of the game released basically 2 decades ago, and people wanted to return to the initial game. There was very active private servers with millions of players, but there was never an official classic version of the game re-released. And players kept pushing and pushing and pushing, including getting 200k signatures on related petitions. But it was just constantly turned down. Blizzard always said no matter what. They said it was never going to happen. In fact, we had this infamous quote from J. Allen Brack many years ago, where someone asked about whether there would ever be Classic Realms released, and that this is something players really wanted. And he replied with his infamous quote saying, "You think you do, but you don't." Basically saying, we know better than you, despite everything you're saying to us and what you want, it's not actually what you want. Well, that would age horribly, as Classic WoW would be released about 5 years ago, and on initial release, the servers were flooded. There was 10+ hour queues just to get into the game, and there's been many iterations and paths stemming from that initial Classic re-release, and it's honestly one of the very few good decisions Blizzard has made in a very, very long time, was re-releasing Classic WoW and trying to extend upon Classic WoW. Now, going back to the post made by Mark Kern saying here, the Step 8 plan is to show them gamers win. Restore the original game to what was promised. That should be the push, to get Stellar Blade, Shift Up, and Sony to restore the version of the game that they promised, this uncensored version that they were advertising themselves as. That is what you should push for. I understand if some people are disappointed and they just don't want to support it anymore. I get it. But if you want to make actual change, you need to go out there and talk to customer support. Reach out to Sony the best way you can. Reach out to Stellar Blade. Reach out to Shift Up. And show that you are not accepting this censorship. Because this is going to happen over and over again unless people can show that gamers can have an impact on these things and make it very clear what they want and get the companies involved to provide that, because they are offering a service and they're molding it and advertising it a certain way, and they're not delivering it the way they promised. That's not acceptable. You should be very vocal about this, and instead of trying to just wipe your hands clean of Stellar Blade entirely, try to get it fixed. Make that be the next headline, that these things are being restored. I think that is the most important thing to do next when it comes to Stellar Blade. And of course, there's going to be trials and tribulations, right? It's going to be hard in and of itself, but you're not going to get support from a lot of people on Twitter. You're going to get attacked, just like Mark Kern has, immediately. Just trying to restore what gamers paid for is being met with threats on people's lives. And that's not surprising, but that is expected. And you can have a million of these comments, but if you keep pushing, who knows? Maybe something good will come out of this situation. And overall, that is what we're talking about with Stellar Blade. There is censorship right now, and there's definitely some questions that need to be answered by Shift Up and Sony. And right now, I know a lot of people will enjoy this game regardless. Let's not act like this makes the game completely useless and bad. But there are things that you should care about. If you're someone who is any sort of familiarity with this channel or related channels, we fight back against censorship. And just because it's happening to a game that you're enjoying or a company you support doesn't mean you should overlook it. That is part of the problem. People did that for years. They overlooked small examples over and over again until these changes kept building up greater and greater to the absolute mess that the gaming industry currently is. We've seen how far it can go. But for now, that is the update regarding Stellar Blade. I hope this cleared up some misinformation and confusion out there. And yeah, as always, feel free to share your thoughts about today's topics in the comment section down below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.